So, good morning, student. I'm your teacher for today, Anelo Luzuriaga, and we're gonna talk about the communication process. So, do you have any idea to what is communication process?
Sir.
Yes.
Sir, communication process is the process of passing information from one person to another.
So that is correct. So, communication process refers to the transmission or passage of information or the message from the sender through a selected channel to the receiver, overcoming the barriers that affects its space. So, so in short, the communication process is the process of communication. Yes, that's correct. So here is the elements of communication. So the first element, there are five basic elements. And the first one is the communicator. Second is the receiver, the transmission, the message, and then the response. So the the communicator is the person who sends the ideas. So in short, he or she is the sender. And then the receiver is the person who receives the ideas. The receiver then decodes the message and then understands the message to what the sender is really talking about. Then the next is the transmission, the act, way, or the method of issuing or sending the ideas. So it is also called as the channel of how you send the ideas. For example, like if we are talking in a public place, you and me are talking. So the method that we're using is the face-to-face method or the communicating as a how do you call that, as a face-to-face. Yeah. Oh shit. So the next one is the message, the idea, order, instruction, advice, suggestion, observation, appeal, or report which is to be communicated. So the message is the idea of the sender that has been encoded to become a message to be sent to the receiver. And lastly is the response, the reaction or reply of the person to whom the message was communicated. The response is also known as the feedback. Yes, to know if the receiver really understand what was being communicated. So the next is the steps in communication process. So the first step is the communicator or the sender. Communication originates from the sender. He or she realized the need for conveying or something to someone else. So the sender will gather the idea. At first, it is a thought. Then he will begin to encode the thought to become a message. So the next is encoding, means putting the message into a code. A message is initiated by encoding a thought. So as I said, the message will be in a code or the thought will be encoded to become a message. So the next is the message is an output of encoding process. And the next one is the channel. A message is transmitted through the appropriate channel. So it is earlier, it's also known as the transmission of how you send the message. So the next one is the decoding, refers to finding the meaning of something conveyed in code. So decoding is the role of the receiver. As the receiver receives the message, the receiver will then start to decode the message to find the meaning what is being conveyed in the message. So the next one is the receiver. Communication requires at least a couple of people, the sender and the receiver. One encode and the other decodes the message. So I think sayon raman no, masabtan raman gyud dayon. So the next one is the feedback. Refers to the reaction of the receiver, or also known as the response. So the noise, it is the enemy of the feedback. To further explain, I'm going to show you a diagram so that you can really understand the steps in communication process. So the first one is the sender. He will then gather the thought or has a question or any other kind, then encode it, and then the encoding process takes place. And then the next one is the message came out. And then it is also channel. The channel will be the process of how you send the message. And then the receiver will start to decode the message. And as soon as he understand the question or the message that was being sent, he will then give feedback. The sender will wait for the feedback to see if the receiver really understood or understand what was the sender conveyed, or what the sender said to the receiver. So as you can see, here is a noise. The noise is everywhere. So in short, the noise, it hinders the communication process, or also known, it is a barrier to communication process. So barrier. So do you have any idea to what are the other types of barriers in communication process?
Yes, sir. So the first communication barriers are language barrier, physical barrier, cultural barrier, and environmental barrier. So on.
So thank you. That's right. So noise is a barrier. And I'm gonna show you an example to how communication takes place. So the girl or the woman, the girl asked the boy, "How are you today?" And the boy then replied, "I'm good, thank you." So can you identify who is the sender and who is the receiver?
So the sender is the girl. The receiver.
Come again? I can't hear you properly. Ah, okay. So the sender is the girl, and the girl asked a question. How are you today? So it is the message, and how they transmitted that message through face-to-face communication. And then the receiver understood the message or the question. He then gives the reply or the feedback or the response. I'm good, thank you. So that would be all. Thank you, class. So I think sayon naman masabtan naman gyud nato dayon ang communication process. So thank you for
Sabtan
listening
nila,
for
sabtan
today.
nila.
Sige, thank you. Do you have any question?
None so far.
Okay, so that will be all for today. So I'm gonna end our class for today. Thank you, my one and only student. Thank you, thank you.